Hello, very warm welcome to this video. Thanks for dropping by. To anyone who's new, an extra special welcome. This is part 5 in a series on the authentic teachings of Christ. And so if you're not familiar with this topic or this channel, I would invite you to go check out the other ones first. And there's going to be a link at the bottom of this video that'll lead you there. So I've entitled this section Reviewing the Foundational Ideas. So there's been a lot. We've gone over a lot of material. And before going any further, I feel that it's really important to get really crystal clear. Like, what are the fundamentals of this path? What are the fundamental things that Christ called us to? What's the way of life that Christ called us to live? So, first and foremost, well, I can't say first and foremost. This is just how I make sense of it, how I organize it. Is this idea of divine, sacred life energy, and taking this energy in every day. I liken it to the spiritual equivalent of breathing. Just how necessary it is to fill ourselves up with this good energy, and we'll go over some of the reasons why that's so important. But let's start right there. To anyone who's new, how to take in this energy. It's very simple. Please sit with your legs uncrossed, feet flat on the floor. Hands on your legs, palms facing upwards. Back in a relaxed position. If possible, not leaning against your chair. And then close your eyes. And really separate yourself from everything not good. Any fears, any resentments, things we're worried about in the future, and also any illnesses. Really mentally putting them aside. And then opening yourself to receive this vital life energy. Really thinking about healing, putting all of your attention on healing, and then asking to receive this energy and observing your body. Noticing what you feel, having the intention to take this energy in. Spend a little time in silence doing that now. Taking in the good. Noticing what you feel. Taking in this energy with faith that it can heal, that it is healing. So I'm going to talk a little bit, and I invite people to continue to take this energy in. So, the next fundamental I want to look at is awareness of um, the divine, the good, mm, the sacred, that which is healthy, nourishing, and the negative, that which is destructive, harmful. Some people call it evil. So, one of the essentials of this path is the recognition that we live right in between these two sources of energy and sources of thoughts. That not every thought that every thought has a source, but not every thought comes from a benign source. That there truly is a destructive, harmful um, energy, consciousness um, that we must be mindful of. And this is part of why we need to keep full of this vital life energy so that we can be aware and be present and catch those thoughts as they come, catch negative feelings, um, and not, in essence, really be taken over by them. And this, of course, points back to the idea that we are a soul. And one of the capacities of the soul is to receive. And that moment by moment, we need to be exercising our free will to tune in, to receive what's good. Now, right alongside that is the importance of having faith and trust in the good. First and foremost, that whether you call the good God or spirit or source, creator, there's many names, but to be very clear that it is limitless. And this is very important because here in life we face so many problems. And we need to be crystal clear that there is something in the universe bigger than all of our problems. Human beings have that very bad habit of when a problem arises of feeling stuck with the problem, feeling that there's no solution. It's one of the most harmful habits, and it's really just a lack of faith that there is a higher power and that this higher power is a million times bigger than our biggest problem. It's July 2020. The human race is facing its, so far as I can tell, our biggest problem in history. And this, it's called different things, global crisis, some people are calling it, is nothing compared to the limitless power of God. The limitless, infinite power of Source, of Spirit. And this also translates to the idea of incurable. There's no such thing as an incurable illness. Why? Because an illness is finite, whereas spirit is infinite. An illness is like a grain of sand thrown into the ocean being God, the grain of sand being an illness. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but what I am saying is if you compare, and this is so important because we human beings, we do the opposite. When there's a problem, like we make God very small and far away, and we make the problem very big and like right here. When really the truth of it is that the biggest problem is very small, and that God is right here and huge. But that's not to say don't take to dismiss the problem, just to put it in its proper perspective. So let's sit with all this, spend a little time in silence, taking in this life force. noticing what you feel. So, in essence, what I spoke about is having the correct perspective that how small our problems are. However, we can't make the problem too small, or to be more accurate, we can't dismiss the power of the negative force. All we need to do is look around this world and see that, again, whether you call it evil, negativity, disorder, delusion, ignorance, it is a mighty power. It's a mighty force. So it's finding that middle ground of not um, of recognizing the almighty power and also recognizing how powerful this negative force is. We can't just dismiss, we can't dismiss or ignore the negative force. It's taking our world to the brink of uh, destruction, or at least the top layer of life on this planet. Now, for many people, it's very hard to have faith in this goodness or to believe in this infinite good reality. It was for me, and it wasn't until I experienced my first healing in my own body that I couldn't deny that there was a higher power. I'm not a theologian. I can't, it's not my job to sort of fully define or to say everything about this higher power. But what I can say is God, ultimate reality, is an absolute fact. Said another way, there's something more fundamental than what we call the laws of physics, biology, chemistry. But many people struggle to have faith in this power, primarily because bad things happen. Bad things happen to everyone, and sometimes horrific things happen. And so it's essential to have an understanding of why such things happen. It's the age-old question: why do bad things happen to good people? Said another way, why would an all good God allow such horrendous things? The solution to that problem is free will, the understanding that God doesn't force, the supreme reality doesn't force anyone to do anything. It gives us as individuals and us as a species free reign, even if we even if we do the most horrific things. However, all of this happens. All of this is held by this higher power. And everything is orchestrated in such a way that everything, everything serves a higher purpose. Even the most horrific experience that I've had, or you've had, or other people have had, still serves the good. Now, this can be very hard to swallow, and yet, with hindsight, every person. Um, I'll just speak from my own experience. Everything negative I have ever experienced, in hindsight, I can see there was a lesson there. And as we've spoken about, simultaneously, that when we do good, we get good back, and when we do harm, we get harm back. So, why do bad things happen to good people? Because they've done harm and they're receiving harm back, or because it serves learning, that there is no other way for that learning to occur. This is essential because without this, it's very hard to actually have faith. It's very hard to really trust that this higher power is all good, that life is fair. Without this understanding, life can seem meaningless, unfair, random, chaotic. It can seem brutal. So let's sit with all this, continuing to take in this life energy. Noticing what you feel. And so part of this all rests on letting go of our old definition of God. Many of us have been taught the most horrific things, that God is vengeful and vindictive. So I invite people to put aside their old ideas about God and to try on a new. And actually, I invite people to try out a new word. You might say spirit. For example, I'm not Muslim, and yet for a while I really sat with calling out to God as Allah. And it was profound because I really didn't have, I was just beginning my study of Islam, and I didn't have all these associations. We have so many associations with the word God. And I'm convinced that for most of us, most of those associations or ideas aren't true. So starting over, so you find your own words: source, spirit, creator, spirit of the universe, cosmic mind, cosmic consciousness. I would invite people to find a word that's not really connected to any tradition. My experiment with the word Allah was interesting, but of course that was connected to a specific tradition. So it sort of freed me from some of my old associations, but find a word. And then there's just a few concepts I would invite you to try on. That God is everywhere and in everything. That the supreme reality is even inside of us. To what extent, we need to each find out. Maybe it's a little drop, but that sacred reality lives inside of everything, including us, and that it is all good and only good. And it's that which gave us existence, and all it wants for us is happiness. So here we begin to see the power of thought. Someone who's been taught that God is punishing or vindictful will be terrified of God. But that's just a thought. It's just some words that someone spoke and someone listened to, but they took those words in. Many of us, I did. Because thoughts truly and words truly have power when we take them in. And all you need to do is observe yourself, and all day long you'll see thoughts are coming. And many of them are not healthy, helpful. In fact, some of them are straight up harmful. And so this leads us to the question of, can we and again, as I said before, many of these thoughts come from a destructive force. And this is really, in my view, the $10 million question. Can we overcome that negative force all on our own without a higher power? I couldn't. I tried for many years. Spiritual study, tried different religions, different forms of meditation, different forms of health and wellness, but I was not able to free myself from this negativity, from the ill effects of it, and from the negative thoughts, and from dis-ease and lack of peace. So one of the fundamental, as I said, we live between these two forces, the nourishing and the harmful. We need to recognize that the nourishing is all powerful. We also need to recognize that the harmful is very powerful. Not all powerful, though. And then ask ourselves, can I overcome the harmful force on my own? My answer was no. As many great mystics and sages throughout the ages have said, in essence, that we need the supreme, we need the good, God. Why? There's many reasons, but on a very nuts and bolts level, we need the Almighty to overcome that which is very mighty. We need the good, which is Almighty, to overcome the negative, which is very powerful. And hence, what we need is humility. One of the hardest things for human beings. And it's even harder in the 21st century with our technology. We can fly to the moon. I can type a few things on my computer, and within a very short time, uh, within one day's time, I can be halfway around the world. It won't even take a full day. If I have enough money, I can do on a Concorde jet and be there in hours. So there's many things we as human beings can do. And I put forth the proposition that on the spiritual path, there's one thing that human beings cannot do, and that is overcome the destructive force without divine help. And that recognition leads us to humility. And really, in essence, leads us to the attitude of Source, Spirit, I need you. I can't do this without you. You may have your own way. In fact, each person needs to find their own way to express that humility and then to live it day by day. So let's sit with all this, continuing to take in this higher power. Some mystics have expressed this as God, you're the master, I'm the servant. You're the parent, I'm the child. You're the teacher, I'm the student. You're the boss, I'm the employee. And so, with this attitude of humility, that takes us to what I consider to be the meaning of life and the purpose of life, is to learn how to follow God, how to be in service, that life, this entire universe exists as a gift, and that gift is a school to learn how to how to be a more and more effective, efficient, peaceful, and joyful instrument of the divine. There's a very famous prayer called the St. Francis Prayer, attributed to St. Francis of Assisi. And it goes like this: Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, and it is in forgiving that we are forgiven, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. So what if, and each person needs to find out for themselves if this is true, what if the whole purpose of our life is to learn how to align ourselves with life, with existence, with source, and then be in service to this unspeakably beautiful creation? Of course, what you could call a worldly perspective is like, how much can I get? And I would argue the spiritual perspective, from a healthy place, is how much can I give? What can I contribute? So I'd like to thank everyone for joining in this video today. Thanks for saying hi, Morella, Germana, and Jisoo. And thank you for the fun emojis. So as always, please don't believe anything I say, and really dive deep within yourself and listen. Listen to the deepest part of you. And thank you. Actually, I think I'll close with that. So how, that sounds so complicated, becoming a servant of God, serving life. But really, it's often expressed doing God's will. And that's a beautiful way to express it. And ultimately, what I'm talking about is getting in touch with the part of us that knows what to do, that knows what's true and what isn't true, knows what's right and what's wrong. This isn't about following a set of rules. This is about following goodness. And yes, as I've said, that goodness, source, all around us and inside of us. And that's where we need to make contact with the part of us that knows and then knows what to do. And of course, I've talked about this as a school, and that the universal lesson is for all of us to become instruments, servants of God, have God as our boss, and take on our role as a good employee. And what that looks like will be different for each person. However, I'm convinced that the principle is quite universal. I'm very, very grateful to everyone who joined in live and everyone who took the time to watch this video. So I wish you a day of communing with life and being guided by your heart, by the part of this a part of the supreme, the sacred reality, source that lives inside of you and wants nothing but your happiness. Thank you so much for joining in. Take care. Deep, deep love.